This is this is a fundraiser for Texas for responsible marijuana laws. As we know what we're up against with legislation, one of the best ways that we can work on a local level right now to stop this immoral law is jury nullification. So we are doing outreach at the courthouses here, and we're always looking for more people. I know in Tarrant County right now, the new prosecutor is going to be going after charging people for felony possession of marijuana, and they are now, and that is including CBD that has 3% THC in it, they now want to prosecute as a felony. The new DA, John Crusoe in Dallas, has also made a commitment to try to turn in legislation takes effect, trying to keep people out of cages. One of the best ways we can do that is jury nullification. So again, FIJA.org, FIJA, or juryhero.com. And then there's some flyers out there as well. Feel free to grab as many as you want.
All right, guys, debate's about to get started. Here we go.
Test 1, 2. Can everybody hear me? Awesome. Well, this doesn't adjust, so I'm going to go down. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We have a classic debate here today, capitalist versus socialism. So I would like to start by welcoming our two debaters up front. We have I also want to, on behalf of the Texans for Responsible Marijuana Policy, I can't talk today, this is going to be great. Thank you for your support. More than a dozen cannabis bills have been filed so far in the 86th legislative session. Your donation today will directly support Heather Fazio, the most experienced cannabis reform lobbyist in Texas. And with that said, there's a jar in the back corner that we're about to pass around. If you want to see change made, let's put our dollars where our hearts are, and let's give them a good start. To start, we're going to have selected, and we are started. The second person will have 6 questions. At the end, we will have a 10-minute closing statement in the opposite order of the opening statements. So to decide, we're going to do this the fairest way I know how. Who goes first? We're going to flip the coin. Can we use gold? Gold works for me. Let's see. You want to call it?
Tails.
Tails. I see tails. So you get to choose. You want to go first or you want to go second?
Second.
All right, second.
Gentlemen, I'll be lighting the yellow light 30 seconds from the end of your time period.
I guess I was too close. And this Pemex agency has been generating trillions of dollars of revenue and still operating at a deficit. That's usually what happens when we nationalize anything. And as you can see, there's a lot of issues happening in Venezuela. People, even that own specific statement talks about how if there was a free market going in and out, if there was not a nationalized barrier, people will flourish. So all that's to say, middle upper class household. My dad was able to generate probably a little more than our neighbors. So I always felt a little bit guilty of that. So whenever I started learning about it, I was like, yeah, because I feel bad for my buddies that their parents were not able to generate as much as we would. So at a nonprofit, whenever I was able to finally get some work, and I noticed that because I went from what I thought I was a socialist. Che Guevara t-shirt doesn't work, it's shit. So I went to the extreme opposite side, right? So if you can see, like, from one end to the other, and then it was bullshit also. But I was able to see any kind of airtime. But he talked about freedom. He talked about liberty, and the idea that when people are aimed towards prosperity or happiness, those are side effects of light, if you will. Whenever I started delving into freedom, I was able to see, and after several years, a lot of people say, the CEOs, CFOs, all those guys, they're just lazy people. They make a bunch of money, and we need to eat the rich, tax them. Well, now I get to work with all of those guys, and I see that they actually do like 80-hour weeks more often than not, and they work a lot, and their decisions have a lot of weight. So, and they actually care about a lot of people. One interesting thing that I went to a Conscious Capitalism, John Mackey. So I was like with Trader Joe's to provide to society. They were thinking about making parks, hospitals, anything that you hear is the anti-rhetoric and anti-business research that I don't think that socialism even exists. It's just activism and be able to understand more, to be able to help people see how the anti-business rhetoric is not.
Thank you, Luis.
Yes.
There we go, that's better. Thank you, Luis.
We're here in North Texas for about the past 13 years trying to advance the ideas of libertarian socialism. Who's evolved and advanced a little further. When I stumbled upon in my libertarian readings, anarchist by the name of Benjamin. And a lot of the times, as he was saying, a lot of the terminology that we use to define things has been distorted, convoluted, and hopefully during the word socialism from being a dirty word to a liberatory word. Oscar Wilde actually said that he wrote a piece called he thought that socialism would lead to perfect individualism. Basically, socialism, classical economists and classical socialists have always viewed socialism as a giving back power to the people. Socialism is why I'm here today to talk about the tradition of social anarchists such as Pierre Proudhon, I've been dedicating the better part of my life of like the past decade or more to advancing these ideas, letting people know the real history of what we're all about. Had nothing but bad things. This was antithetical to any notion of a free society, and the actual term libertarian was first used in political sense in 1858 by to mean other things. Like we're here in the Libertarian Party building, but before was, like I said, the first Myra Rothbard being the himself in a piece actually wanted to try to develop a term that stopped short of have a lot in common, probably more in common than we disagree. We both will probably opposed. But where we'll probably disagree is like the definition of socialism, socialist anarchists, the actual true history of anarchism actually is. So.
Just so there's no confusion, nobody is obligated to take it full time. So if you feel you've said with whatever you feel like you need to say. Daylighting a black market to an expansion of medical cannabis in Texas. If passed, the testing and dispensing of cannabis. However, the bill entrusts the regulating medical cannabis in Texas. And we're going to start with a 4-minute statement from Luis.
It's better to have the market regulate itself. It's actually a magic ball, or, you know, I'm not, I guess, a god incarnate. Recently became legalized like a couple of years ago or so. Legal doesn't mean that it's good. What I would suggest is decriminalize it, not making it a crime to have it by human services and all that. We, director, are choosing who wins in the market and who loses in the market. If I have a third of an acre in our house, if I say, well, I'm a family, so I wouldn't want that to happen. So Whole Foods, nobody tells me, I mean, aside from my wife, nobody tells me what I need to buy or not buy organic food. And I don't care that the state tells me if it's one thing. No, this is legit, this is good, I tested it like kosher. And they see the little K, they're like, oh, that's cool, I don't need a government to tell me that. You know, those are. Now, one thing that I always hear from my left-leaning friends is, you don't believe in the market, but you want a person to regulate. Love to see, you know, I believe in the little person too, so anybody can grow anything. You know, I mean, I'm from Mexico City, where you get out of your house, you know, like you can do whatever you want, so you can be little Johnny the cannabis out of business in no time flat. You know, don't trust Johnny there, because his pot is like, it's not dank. So you go. Cannot necessarily force one thing, because as you see, whenever we force them, like, I mean, I have kids, if I try to force them to do something, they're going to do the opposite of what I tell them. So I play with resentment.
Thank you, Luis. Todd, you have 6 minutes to respond?
Yeah, we're actually agreeing. But yeah, I completely agree. I think all drug using people do of their voluntary free will, and no one's being oppressed. I don't think talking people. I think drug laws have actually been they've led to more deaths and more crime than drugs prohibiting marijuana, for instance. If you read news clippings from the past, that would actually raid the apartments of marijuana, and they'll raid their homes, and they could have lived out the rest of their days not harming anyone. So people, hopefully the public, will start freedom for everyone, the abolition of government laws. I would agree with him to an extent that from a left perspective, should be subjected to the market. Capital. These things are needed by everybody. It's not created by anybody, so it should be free to everyone. Insofar as to preserve compensation for the market, I do agree pretty much beyond that. I do agree that the product of your labor, but the fruits of the earth are for everyone. So I don't believe the fruits of the earth itself, our land, our oceans, our farms. Monsanto these days has patents on life. There's democracy and autonomy. But I do agree that we don't believe on the left libertarian perspective, is what we call our system. We believe that these things are de facto dictatorships by autonomous human beings. There's no freedom within a corporate hierarchy. People were free to live on, expelling things like landlords or, a contradiction, in terms of a free society. We can't have bosses amongst equal people, which is why anarchists seek to abolish rulers. We seek to abolish as far as they're found in society, any notion of a free society. Getting back to the point to impair our free disposal of our own faculties, our own thought process. We're talking about abortion, we're talking about marijuana, we're talking about the folks you read, who you marry, whether or not you want to go. It's, you know, we believe that it's your choice. It's your life.
You mentioned something Monsanto, right? There's not like the bigger guns. I mean, I have a ton of guns, but is that not inconsistent? Like the idea that we're going to have to be smart than you, we all have roles, and we don't. I have no idea how to do it, so I would need somebody like a mentor or somebody that has a title that says CEO. No, it only means that the person has vision, the person has paid their dues. You know, you are much better than me for some things, and I can be. It's the whole idea that we all are specialists on certain things. So whenever everybody owns something, nobody just go down. The tragedy of the commons, that's what it's called. So we need to be really mindful that whenever we actually have ownership towards something, we tend to
Economics, pay, and benefits. And the question reads, during World War II, employers began offering benefits such as pensions and found the average cost of benefits to employers is $11.60 per worker per hour. This represents, if you owned your own company, how would you approach balancing pay and
Picking up where he left off about the tragedy of the commons, kind of like inflation, which basically was at the advent of capitalism in the 1700s. The country of Europe, they were able to do subsistence farming on behalf of the nobility and aristocracy and enforce something which was called the Enclosure Acts. Led to the creation of a landless peasantry, which forced people to work in factories, which led to the rise of cities. And who was mostly a pre-capitalist, he wasn't a capitalist because he argued against the same intervention. There's the rise of two main classes, the bourgeoisie and proletariat, house degrees, and they were getting along just fine, and they weren't forced to reduce to what we call wage earners or wage laborers. Wage laborers forced to work for a boss because they don't have the common sense. We've always basically having recourse to work for yourself or be your own boss. You have to work for someone just to get by. I'm pretty sure if you went around, those of us who might be fortunate enough to own our own capital. But as far as the abolition of wage labor, we want to give land back to the people so everyone can be self-employed. Typically, it's wages. It's how much you get paid. You're actually getting paid. In the state of nature, the amount you get paid is actually proportion to how much you actually produce. Under capitalism, as it is right now, the people in the country, even more than thousands of people, and we see that as economic injustice. Be self-employed. And that's
6-second rebuttal, a 6-minute rebuttal.
answer the question real quick on that, I would say that it has to be voluntary. At the consulting firm where I work, I'm like, I don't health like stuff because no, in my case. So as you do these things, you're able to give also freedom and more empowerment to people. Specific circumstance. So that would be how I would handle that. Now the whole idea. Yes, I was thinking in French. So jobs versus wages. I think that's, you know, is the Native Americans being, you know, stripped from their lands. But other than that here, what I think what's most important is not necessarily that, oh, you know, I hate having a job. So as, you know, my friend here said, there's the government that took away land from people here. What they do is since 1913, the Federal Reserve has been, it's not the same. So that's how they steal your money via government. So as far as the wage situation, there's not everybody should get paid the same. I actually do some consulting on the side, and one of my friends, super open heart person, he said, I started this business, we are doing planned because they were getting a high percentage like he was. So he said, I can't keep doing this because these people are not working. So we incentivize people. It's like, okay, we can start. You don't have skill. Whenever you get paid a wage, that's not what you're really worth. That's your boss believing in you for the future, what you can produce. And once you get another raise, that means that they believe that you can create. Making this much money, would you work for, let's say, $10, $11 an hour? That's what I can give you. If you say, we're going to split costs, whatever, what happened to all the legwork that I put, all the 80-hour weeks together, and you will be compensated for that? To me, that doesn't sound like slavery. So the idea of work versus, wages, if we didn't have to produce a whole lot more wealth by doing what I'm specialized at versus having to, go. If you have to make everything for you, there is no exchange of goods and services, and we will remain in poverty. When I go to Whole Foods, whenever we trade, for her, that's a win-win. For me, it's a win-win because I want that milk, right? I bring it home, my kids drink it, whatever. That's wanting to tax people, or in a sense to want to create a complete, if you will, nationalize where everybody gets to share everything. Anti-business rhetoric. Seriously, there's so many people. I have friends that work at power plants, and University of Pennsylvania. We had PG&E. These people, they almost don't ever sleep. They end up even sometimes having divorces because they're never home. They're working. They get to watch TV. For the rest of us that are not necessarily line front person, that actually have you have all the responsibility of the enterprise on your shoulders. It could be 9, 10 lives at all. I don't know where that comes from at all. So it just blows my mind. Maybe it's lack of experience in that kind of realm.
Thank you, Luis.
Maybe taken a little bit beyond what I actually meant to say, or out of context a bit, but trying to abolish, I think Luis said it was free enterprise or wealth or things like that. Land were held basically in common, in a sense, as it used to be. Property of a few mega landowners, for the most part, in the United States. If we go back to a system like that, usufructuary, which basically, no one creates the earth, so no one should have to pay a landlord to live on it. As far as what he said, prohibit people who legitimately do work hard. We're not saying all sole proprietors don't work hard. We're saying we want to eliminate the class of people who basically live off of state subsidies. That's basically exploitation.
Thank you, Todd. We'll go into our next question, but I'll say, if y'all want to turn off your mics, I can just pass this one back and forth. Sounds like we're getting some cut out on these, and so mine seems to be pretty steady. So next up we have Ocasio-Cortez and the Green Deal. The deal so far is a draft proposal establishing a new Green Deal committee charged with developing a mobilization plan for the United States economy to become greenhouse gas, economic and environmental justice and equality. What solutions would you propose to promote economic and environmental.
Thank you. So, right off the bat, I think that watching Back to the Future when Doc comes back and he goes to the rubbish. What are you doing, Doc? And so this thing works out with trash, right? That's pretty cool. Now, that in itself is happening. You know, I grab my phone, check my email. Like, capitalism has helped all these cars. And now there is one thing. We have clients in the and actually these guys, the EPA runs their standards. They're like stewards of the world. They're like, you know, everything that comes out is nothing but just right next to the boilers. And he said, you know, the EPA came and they said that we're burning too hot and that hurts the environment. Now, check this out. When that happens, they were complaining about burning too much. Now they're burning even more thanks to the smart people, centralized power of the EPA and all the green people. Now, wind power, I used to be with Green because I thought that they were clean and all this. When I started working, the COO of the nuclear power plant said, you know, that's actually a scam. All of that, you somewhere else where they actually have consistent wind, maybe next to the ocean, maybe somewhere else. That is just for show here. So if we want to make things green, we should look into nuclear power plants because those guys is nothing but a way to control how we do things. You know, I was seeing in Bolivia, they're starting to give rights to the earth. So that's coming to a corner near you. So what I would suggest is that you really educate yourself a lot on these matters. And when you see it's very important that we realize is that the Green New Deal, like nothing, we're going to go back to so we're going to like go back in time to things that like I don't want to have to live in the 1800s, you know, where like it was
Thank you so much.
Green New Deal, again, I rejected the entire premise of putting it out. So I think the best way to is to abolish the state and put the workers in control of the factories, where everyone has a vote and everyone has a rule over us and tell us what to do and tell us how things are nice right now. The state monopolies, you can't. So you can just forget about it. So Akash, taking back the country, the workers actually seizing the means of production. We actually abolish the state, abolish capitalism, and control the means of production in common. Because I think I read somewhere between, I may be wrong here, maybe someone can fact check me in the audience, but I think about 90% of greenhouse gas emissions is caused by the top pollution in the entire world. If not, I think it is the biggest polluter. Tires. You can, a lot of this stuff is public knowledge. You can actually, it's the system that's in place where there's an intrinsic account. As long as we put other people that after 5,000 years, we have to understand that and in control of our own lives and organize ourselves in an autonomous, free way without hierarchy, then we'll actually see some change. But until then, there's not change. So I think a lot of this is just false solutions. As long and they also, as far as solutions go, we can't think outside of what's presented. Which is what we're saying on the left libertarian viewpoint, as far as anarchists are saying that the state doesn't own us. We have to decide that the state doesn't own our labor, doesn't own complete restructuring of society to accomplish that. And a lot of environmental anarchists the subject, maybe get with him. But it's pretty much come from people taking the power back themselves and abolishing the state itself. Or else we're not going to have a system. States isn't a democracy in any sense of the word. It's not even really where capture is a common occurrence. They regulate it. And it's not going to change.
To be a democracy, not everything is up for public vote. And the reason, like right on the other side of things, like they're so into everything is up for, like everybody needs to know everything. So yes, I understand that we need to need to be in a hierarchical thing. Like, I mean, it is not democracy. Push back on that because there's a lot of things that could happen. But ultimately, that's all these like pollution and all that. No, as he was saying, the military. But at the same time, that keeps you trapped to your fellow humans because you're not like, if everything is a democracy, you man free from men. And that's what I'm all about, individual freedom.
Thank you, Luis. An eminent domain. The question is, in March, Congress privately owned. The path of the barriers is cut across land belonging to Wilmington Catholic Chapel. Through Trump's claim that for national defense is met with great skepticism, the Fifth Amendment does, if any circumstances, should the interest
again, kind of, any role in the affairs of free humans. Disagree on minarchists, as they say, people who are being the monopoly of courts and police, the monopoly or what, but who Mises and people like Ron Paul actually believe in the minimal state that the government should exist if for nothing else but private protection could be subject to the free market as police are just a monopoly, and monopolies promote abuse, and to abolish monopolies is mafia protection rackets writ large. So we would abolish the state first, and term throughout history has been a big hobgoblin, right? Yes, he kind of alluded to the fact that in an anarchist system, there's a school of anarchism called individualist anarchism, which was the your means of production or associate and disassociate as freely as possible, right? It wouldn't be a system as long as you're living there. But if you don't use it, you lose it. You go somewhere else. And this was hold. I mean, Adam Smith even agreed that, I think he said, inherited debt is to swindle the point of this, but as far as like, like Adam Smith, I can actually provide you guys with that quote when this is over. It's actually down where he said the exact same thing, that people are allowed to homestead property system, a left libertarian anarchist system, like we would have. This is the most sensible position, I think that any reasonable.
I guess that makes me very unsensible. Bothered by people, does that make me unsensible? Does it make me evil? No, that doesn't. I'm not hurting anybody. Because I'm able to be peaceful and I'm not going to take over the world. I think churches, they put those labels under capitalism, but that's not capitalism. That's and especially all like easy, we have a button for everything. We would have to create a button. What do you think that should be done for the common good? My question is, what is the common good? Back in 2000, and I-35 was being built, and it's how's that wall going to work? Especially when like most of that is privately owned, and the renters, they don't. If there's a way that they can pass freely, people like why not? I can't remember who was it. Frederick Bastiat, where it's open for trade and people and all of that. we start, I guess, smoking horrible and just saying, oh, how we are different. And I guess I'm old enough to remember when terrorists were Eastern, Mexicans, or I don't know, we'll see. But the whole idea about the wall is just on that now. Ultimately, is they're just culture that doesn't speak your language, and they take your job, you deserve it. I mean, it's just as easy as that. Because get better skills. I mean, very honestly. Generations that move here, they are the ones that can work the hardest and amass most. I'll vote for Trump or I'll vote for Ocasio and she'll give me goodies. And she'll give me goodies off of my own damn paycheck, right? It's big enough to take everything from you. That's something that we have to be really scared of. Whenever you say, well, I'll just take all the goodies. I can't, well, are you sure? Because they can't just control your life. They can hold it over you. And personal property, what's the difference, right? So I think that it's actually, it's like one bathroom in the house and there's 3 people. Like, get out of the bathroom, I'm shooting myself. It's like so difficult to really decide to get things done, because I think that everything needs to be privatized. And to the point where, if you want something, somebody else will provide it for you. That's just easy. Just let the government, the free flow. I mean, I think years, abject poverty is going to be gone in 20 years thanks to capitalism, even though there's some hurdles that we have to jump through, just kind of outwitting the state. Now we sing Oprah, all of that comes from the free market and the jumps that we.
Thank you, Luis. And now we will go for a 2-minute rejoinder from.
I'm just going to make a few quick remarks on this last statement. I think that, we have to understand that, I think most people agree, is that, most people are in favor of a minimum wage, but they never ask about what's the maximum wage, right? If one person, it's just a mathematical formula, it's a mathematical reality. But if you don't have control over where you live, you don't have any rights, you just have privileges of your landlord or your boss or your politicians. So in order to democratize society and have more freedom and democracy, or possess these things individually without the authority of the community, we agree in that sense that the community shouldn't control what you do in your house. Just like we agree that the state shouldn't. But I think the common sense restrict our freedoms. We can't. We're leaning in a direction right now where capitalism is going to lead to, total freedom. We're going to have to democratize production.
Thank you, Todd. So, those are great answers. Can we get a round of applause for our 2 participants? Minutes, let us know what we need to know.
I just basically came here as an opportunity. This is the first time I've actually experienced a lot of debate, so I appreciate right-leaning, the history of right-leaning anarchists, Rothbard and Ron Paul. I actually came from that history. I just came here basically to advocate. I said at the outset of this entire event that I wanted to clarify what people thought of as socialism and capitalism. There's a lot of confusion, and a lot of it's intentionally done by powers that be, to obfuscate what the truth of what anarchists represent and what we're about. A lot of people want to associate anarchism with chaos and disorder, but there's nothing further from the truth. Anarchists, we promote a voluntary system of government. We're not even against government, we're against states. There's a difference. We're all for government as long as it's voluntary. We're not saying everything in society should be democratic, like the toothbrush you choose. Everyone doesn't have to vote on that. But everything that involves other people, those people should be included. in fifth grade. We're getting, we're basically just want to put that out there. If you want to learn more about what we do, I'm coming like Pierre Proudhon. The American anarchist tradition actually started with William Godwin. You guys might know him. He actually that's a guy you might want to look up. Pierre. Some of my friends who came. Basically, anarchy. It comes from the Latin word that means no ruler. Relationship, all class distinction between both. Due to abolition of capitalism, Leo Tolstoy once said that slavery is immaterial whether or not it be the possession of the. And so that's why we critique capitalism. We critique capitalism because we don't think that because people benefit from it. If we abolished corporate subsidies that the United States government gives to military contractors, a peaceful world. But as long as we allow people to profit off of what's illegal, we're going to have what we got. They control the information. This audience to think outside the box, look into all and actually rehabilitating the entire notion of socialism. But anarchists have always opposed authoritarian socialists, or so-called like Karl Marx and his critique of capitalism from the originator of anarchism, Pierre Proudhon. He was an understudy of him. Throughout history, throughout the Russian Revolution, throughout the Spanish Revolution in 1936, and even still today, there's a major conflict. Given the history between us, so the difference between us and Marxists has always been that we believe that socialism actually stops at the state line. What Marxists actually call socialism, we would call just basically in practice of oligarchical collectivism. It's one of the things he talked about. He was criticizing about the country, but it was the promise that was betrayed by it, because as long as you try to entrust socialism to rulers, it's, you're going to have that incompatibility. People who dictatorship to preserve a revolution, you have a revolution to preserve a dictatorship. Power isn't a means, it's an end. So as long as politicians don't go in their private lives, they don't go out there and go in their business trying to make you rich and give you money and give you raises and make themselves poor. It's not to actually serve the public. Only the collective action of the public itself is going to do that, and it's going to achieve that. And so, like I said, I encourage you guys to, I guess for the last time, I just want to kind of go over these classical definitions of it. Also, I encourage you guys just to not let these words and these terms that we're throwing out there just very specific. Capitalism means something specific. Capitalism, communism actually means something very specific. Socialism, throughout history, meant Marxist dictatorships, Marxist republics, and oligarchies. That's not socialism. I mean, they call themselves socialism, but it's basically capitalism. Don't own the means of production, the land, and capital directly. Individually, anarchists, we want to give that power back to the masses. And we actually don't want to lead the people. That, you want it to mean. It doesn't mean the free market. Actually, capitalism actually restricts the free market. It doesn't mean, you can't just start today and compete with wage labor is like an outgrowth of capitalism. If land were in common, we wouldn't have no possession. I think it's one of the most sensible things. And
Any of you play Fortnite?
the guy that created Fortnite has purchased. That's the thing that I'm talking about. Yes, it is the means of production. It is capital. It is money, and that is a private thing that has nothing to do with government. When we talk about Jeff Bezos, those guys have state and business to create winners, like massive big winners. In a normal state of affairs, Bill Gates, like in any government, the money that they stole from all of us to be able to make that list of Forbes 100, richest people on earth. So, and now what's funny, I mean, I'm happy to be able to just order something and get it the same day for an extra $5. That's awesome. I love that. But that thing is, our friends is capitalism is economic dictatorship. I think that capitalism is actually life itself. When we start trading with one another, we are exchanging goods of the United States. The whole idea is that here, people can be destitute. Give me you're sick and you're tired, all that stuff. Rags to riches, galore. If you because there's a lot of red tape, there's a lot of things going on because a lot of things are either, we cannot let you get higher than the rest of us kind of thing. So these people, and the whole idea of eating the rich or not allowing people, like the 1% situation. So what's funny about that is the 1%, 320, I don't know if you knew that, right? So what's also even more interesting is that anybody that makes $32,000, no, that's just a boogeyman that they have. I was talking to John Mackey, and he was explaining to me that his theory is that those, when we go from, so these guys were, like the super fancy people of the times, and whenever nobody started making money because of the free market, they were pissed, like, you don't have an education, you are not trained, how are you able to do these things? Capitalism allowed those nobodies to be able to provide services and values to the world, and in return make good money. So this is a story that has always happened, that all those envious little, stiffy people being angry at the rest of us normal people to be able to provide good services and make a buck at it. My dad started working when he was 6 years old because his dad got sick. He put himself through college and became an engineer, a successful one. So if he was able to do that, anybody of us here can do that too. That's the whole idea of the free market capitalism. It allows us the freedom to be able to be who we want. If we can be anything we want, why do we want to be like, victims or just little bitchy people? No, we can do anything we want. Just be amazing. Do the best version of yourself. Poor people in the United States have flat screen TVs and they're fat. I mean, think about that for a second. That's not poverty, right? I take my family to Mexico. There is poverty there. Little kids that don't even have shoes, that they sell you 3 little squares of toilet paper for 5 pesos. That is poverty. Here in the States, we don't have that. We're just spoiled. Generating income is easy in high-tech societies. In the past, to be able to amass wealth, we had to go to our neighbor's town and, steal all their gold and rape their women and all of that to be able to make money because there was a fixed pie. In high-tech societies, our dad's basement, we didn't even have a freaking mattress. I was so poor I couldn't even afford to pay attention. So thanks to being in this lovely country, we were able, which is not completely capitalist because we have a little bit of corporate smile over the word. So we talked about monopolies create war. I believe that to an extent. I think war is just a racket that allows people in the military-industrial complex to charge a shit ton of money so they can be rich. I was, in Wyoming, and I was in a little golf course where Doug Cheney lives there. Like, all these houses, like, we were there, let us stay there, like, one of our clients, $10 million up. And I was, like, just driving, hoping to see Dick Cheney so I could punch him in the face. All that's to say, the war ideology is not really out of the monopoly or all of these things. It's because of the state just wants to be able to use us for their own things. Now, one thing is trustee, the lords, and I could have been a socialist, you know? I think it's super, it's in your pocket able to just have democratic go to a house and ultimately somebody on the phone. That's freaky, right? Emails. So I see internet is the greatest equal I actually like. Or those are the means of production are ready for free to you.
About 4:15. If you want to. For another 10 minutes or so, and then we'll start cleaning up. Thank you.
Thank you. I drained it.
That's fine.
Oh, yes, there's
Charge back up.
Yes,
It'll charge back up.
we have our donation jar in front here in the center. If you did not get a chance, please donate. We also
What'd you
have
think?
a sign-up sheet right there next to it where you can
Yeah?
sign up to get
Wasn't enough knife fighting for me.
Wasn't enough knife fighting.
Yeah, was not. Yeah.
It did not.
Hey, YouTuber.
Hey, what's up?
Maybe that's what you should do. You should go find one.
Like I was down there, like tap me in. Oh go! Oh man, they were rolling everywhere. Yeah. Just so everyone knows, we have the world's second largest voluntarist, anarcho-capitalist, anarchist meetup here in Dallas. So if you would like to find out more information about what I would call consistent anarchists, come check us out, meetup.com/voluntarydallas.
Yeah. Anarchists that understand economics.
Yeah.
What's your name on Fortnite? I'll friend you.
What's that?
What's your name on Fortnite? I'll friend you.
Taxation is theft.
Alright then.
Or taxes theft, one of the two. All my video games. Well done. Good job. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was calm.
Yeah.
It was chill. There wasn't any back and forth, really.
I agree.
Yeah.
The church, this is a church, right?
Yeah. Who are you with?
TRL.
What's that?
Printing River Lookout.
Not interested in collaborating. Thanks.
Xbox, computer, mobile.
One day. One day. Thank you. All right. We'll probably do a recap on this soon in another stream, another video. Might even try and get Mises to come on the channel and talk through. Thanks for watching, guys. Talk to you later.